Anna arrived at the grand wedding venue with her team of chefs, her face glowing with excitement. She was ready to impress everyone with her cooking. Her heart danced with joy as she stepped out of the van, directing her assistants to unload the ingredients and equipment. The atmosphere was lively, a perfect day for a celebration. As Anna walked toward the entrance of the large house, something caught her eye. A tall, colorful wedding banner stood proudly near the door. Her smile froze. Her steps slowed. She squinted at the image on the banner, her heart suddenly uneasy. The groom's face looked incredibly familiar. She took a few hesitant steps closer, her breathing quickening. No, it can't be. Her legs trembled as she stared at the banner. It was him. James. Her James. The man she had been in love with for over a year. The man who had told her just last week that he was traveling to his village to care for his sick mother. Her head spun, and her chest tightened. This must be a joke, she whispered to herself, tears already brimming in her eyes. Anna's hands shook as she covered her mouth, fighting the sob that threatened to escape. Her vision blurred as she forced herself to turn away from the banner and rushed into the kitchen. Her assistants followed, oblivious to her distress, chatting cheerfully as they carried supplies inside. But Anna's world felt like it was falling apart. Her heart pounded so loudly she thought it might burst. Inside the kitchen, she leaned against the counter, trying to steady herself. Grace, her assistant chef, noticed her pale face and hurried over. "Anna, are you okay?" Grace asked, her voice filled with concern. Anna swallowed hard, her voice trembling. "Grace, the groom. It's James." Grace blinked in confusion. "James? You're James? Are you sure?" Anna nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sure. I saw his face on the banner." Grace gasped, covering her mouth. "Oh my goodness. This is unbelievable. What are you going to do?" Before Anna could respond, her phone rang. She glanced at the screen and froze. It was James. The name flashed on the screen as if mocking her. She wiped her tears and took a deep breath, trying to sound normal. "Hello, honey," she said, her voice strained. "Hey, my love." James's cheerful voice came through. "How are you doing?" "I'm fine," Anna replied, forcing her voice to stay steady. James sighed heavily. "Babe, there's a problem. My mom's condition has gotten worse. The doctor says we need more money for her treatment. Please, can you help? I don't want to lose her." His voice was filled with sorrow. Anna felt a sharp pain in her chest. How could he lie so easily? How could he be so cruel? Her fingers gripped the phone tightly as fresh tears rolled down her cheeks. She couldn't find the words to respond. Her silence hung in the air until James finally said, "Babe, are you there?" The call ended abruptly, leaving Anna staring at the phone in disbelief. She collapsed onto a chair, burying her face in her hands. Grace knelt beside her, holding her shoulders. "Anna, don't cry. He's not worth it." James's calls kept coming, but Anna didn't answer. Then the messages started. One after another, he begged her to help, claiming his mother's life was on the line. He even sent his bank account details, pleading for her to transfer the money quickly. Anna wiped her tears and stood up, her expression suddenly calm. "Transfer the money to him," she said to Grace, her voice steady but cold. Grace's eyes widened in shock. "What? Are you serious? You're going to give him money to finance his wedding?" "Just do it," Anna said firmly. "I know what I'm doing." Reluctantly, Grace did as she was told. The transfer went through, and James sent a quick "thank you, my love" message. Anna read it, her jaw tightening. Grace watched her boss with concern. "Anna, what's your plan? You can't just let him get away with this." Anna's lips curled into a small, bitter smile. "Don't worry, Grace. The day isn't over yet." Anna's tears flowed endlessly as she stood in the kitchen, her mind spiraling with pain and betrayal. Grace approached her gently, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Ma, I think you need to rest. Let me and the others handle the cooking," Grace said softly. Anna wiped her face with trembling hands and shook her head. "It's fine, Grace. I'll be okay." But her voice cracked, and her tears betrayed her. Grace gave her a worried look, but didn't push further. She left with the other chefs to continue cooking, while Anna leaned against the counter, her body trembling. The sound of laughter and chatter outside the kitchen felt like sharp knives stabbing her heart. She couldn't hold it in any longer and broke down, weeping uncontrollably. Hours later, as Anna sat on the floor of the kitchen, her mind clouded with thoughts, she heard the sound of a car pulling into the compound. Curiosity momentarily broke through her despair. She wiped her face and peeked outside. Her heart sank when she saw one of James's closest friends stepping out of the car. This was the same friend who often visited their home and called her our wife. Her chest tightened. She felt a fresh wave of betrayal wash over her. So, they all knew, she whispered to herself. They were all in on this. The realization crushed her, and she collapsed into tears again. I can't take this. I'm broken, she sobbed. But then, something shifted inside her. Anger began to burn where sadness had been. She clenched her fists and stood up, her eyes blazing. Over my dead body will I let this happen, she muttered, her voice low and fierce. Some minutes later, Anna wiped her tears, straightened her apron, and stepped out of the kitchen. Her face was calm, but her mind was set on a dark plan. She walked to a nearby shop, her steps quick and purposeful. I need poison, she told the shopkeeper, her voice firm. The shopkeeper hesitated, but handed her a small bottle. Anna tucked it into her bag and returned to the kitchen, her heart pounding with a mix of rage and determination. Back in the kitchen, the team worked tirelessly to prepare the dishes. At one point, they realized a specific spice was running low. Grace, can you grab some more spice? Anna asked, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. Grace nodded and went to Anna's bag to get money for the spice. As she rummaged through the bag, her hand brushed against something cold and hard. She pulled it out and froze. It was a bottle of poison. Her heart raced, and she glanced nervously toward Anna, who was busy stirring a pot. Grace's mind raced with questions. What was the poison for? Was it really what she feared? She didn't have the courage to confront Anna, so she took the money and left to buy the spice. When Grace returned, she placed the spice on the counter and kept stealing glances at Anna, unsure of what to do. Should she speak up? Should she warn someone? Her hands trembled as she resumed her work, her mind a whirlwind of fear and doubt. When the cooking was finally done, Anna calmly reached into her bag and pulled out the bottle of poison. Grace's eyes widened in shock, but she remained silent, her body frozen in fear. Anna moved with precision, sprinkling the poison onto the food. She added just a little to most of the dishes, but poured a generous amount onto the fried rice, James's favorite. Grace's heart pounded in her chest as she watched, her mind screaming for her to do something. But fear kept her rooted to the spot. She didn't know if confronting Anna would make things worse. The kitchen felt heavy with tension, the air thick with unspoken words and dark intentions. As Anna finished her task, she stepped back and looked at the food with a blank expression. Her mind replayed every lie James had told her, every moment she had trusted him, and every sacrifice she had made for him. Her heart ached, but her resolve was firm. Hours later, a convoy of cars drove into the compound, honking loudly and drawing the attention of everyone. Anna peeked out from the kitchen, her heart sinking as she saw James stepping out of one of the cars. He was dressed in an expensive traditional wedding outfit, beaming with pride. His friends surrounded him, clapping and cheering as they walked into the celebration arena. Another car door opened, and James's family members stepped out, including his mother, the same mother he had claimed was seriously ill and in need of hospital money. Anna's hands trembled as she gripped the edge of the counter. Her stomach churned with a mix of rage and heartbreak. She couldn't believe the lies James had told her. Her mind raced as she watched them walk toward the decorated canopy where the marriage ceremony was fully underway. The celebration was in full swing, with music playing and guests dancing joyfully. Plates of food were passed around, and the aroma filled the air. Yet, James announced to the crowd, "I'm not hungry. I'll eat later." He smiled at his bride and joined the guests in laughter and chatter. Meanwhile, Anna sat in the kitchen, tears streaming down her face. Her body felt numb, and her mind clouded with the weight of what she had done. The waiting was unbearable. Every passing second felt like an eternity. She clutched her apron tightly, her breathing shallow, as she waited for the inevitable. Soon, murmurs of discomfort began to ripple through the crowd. Guests who had eaten started feeling weak, some clutching their stomachs, others gasping for air. Panic spread quickly as people began collapsing one by one. Some fell to the ground, clutching their throats, while others lay motionless. The once lively celebration turned into chaos. James's parents were among the first to collapse. His mother, who had been smiling and laughing moments ago, now lay lifeless on the ground. The bride screamed in terror, her voice piercing through the air. "What's going on?" she cried, her face pale with fear. James rushed to her side, equally confused and terrified. "I don't know. What are we going to do?" he asked, his voice trembling. Guests who hadn't eaten stood frozen, their faces etched with horror. The once vibrant arena was now filled with cries and confusion. James held his bride close, trying to comfort her, but she suddenly clutched her chest and gasped. "Honey, I don't feel so good," she whispered weakly. Before James could react, she collapsed into his arms. "No, no, please don't do this to me," James cried, shaking her gently. Tears streamed down his face as he held her limp body. All around him, the scene was grim. Most of the guests were lying helplessly on the ground, groaning in pain or completely still. Only a few people who hadn't eaten stood crying, unsure of what to do. James, trembling with fear and desperation, pulled out his phone and dialed the police. His hands were shaking so much he could barely press the buttons. "Hello? Please, we need help. Something is happening at my wedding. People are collapsing. They're not moving. Please come quickly," he shouted into the phone, his voice cracking. He ended the call and looked around, his heart pounding. The joy and laughter that had filled the air just hours ago were replaced with chaos and despair. James's mind raced as he tried to make sense of the nightmare unfolding before him. But deep down, a chilling thought began to creep into his mind. Could someone have done this intentionally? And if so, who? In the kitchen, Anna stood silently, her face pale. She could hear the chaos outside, the screams and the cries. Her heart felt heavy, but she didn't move. She just stood there, staring at the empty bottle of poison on the counter. Tears streamed down her face, but her expression remained blank. She had done it. The pain James had caused her had pushed her to this breaking point. Grace stood frozen near the kitchen door, watching the chaos unfold in the wedding arena. The other chefs were huddled together, their faces pale with fear. Nobody knew what to do. In the middle of it all, Anna sat in the kitchen, her head resting on the table, her heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. Suddenly, one of the workers burst into the kitchen, panting and wide-eyed. "Madam, madam," she shouted, her voice trembling. "There is trouble." Anna didn't look up. Her voice was eerily calm. "What is it?" she asked. The worker hesitated, confused by Anna's lack of urgency. "Everyone in the wedding ground has suffocated. They are lying lifeless." Anna slowly raised her head, her expression blank. "I've heard. What do you want me to do about it?" The worker stared at her, shocked by her response. Without another word, she turned and ran back to the scene, leaving Anna alone with her thoughts. Anna sat there in silence for a while, the weight of her actions sinking in. Finally, she stood, wiping her tears, and walked out of the kitchen. Her steps were slow and heavy as she made her way to the wedding ground. When she arrived, the sight before her was devastating. People were lying everywhere, motionless. Guilt hit her like a wave, and she covered her mouth with her hands as tears streamed down her face. "These people are innocent," she whispered to herself, her voice cracking. "Why did I do this? What have I done?" As Anna stood there, overwhelmed with regret, she heard a familiar voice call out, "Anna." She turned and saw James standing a few feet away, his face a mask of shock and confusion. He took a step closer, his eyes narrowing. "What are you doing here?" he asked, his voice sharp. Anna's heart sank. She hadn't expected him to still be standing. The realization hit her like a blow. The person she had poisoned the food for was unharmed, while innocent people lay lifeless. Her chest tightened, and she felt a fresh wave of tears coming. Who invited her here? James demanded, looking around at the few people still standing. One of the guests nearby hesitated before answering. She's the chef. James's face turned pale. He stared at Anna, his voice rising. What have you done, Anna? He screamed, his voice filled with rage and disbelief. Anna's lips quivered as she stared back at him, her eyes filled with pain. You're evil, James, she cried. I loved you. I cared for you. And you deceived me. Her voice cracked as she continued. How could you be so heartless? I wish you had eaten the food. James flinched at her words, his face a mix of anger and confusion. I don't understand, he said, his voice trembling. Why would you do this? Before Anna could respond, one of the mourners nearby gasped and pointed at her. What? You had a hand in this, she shouted. The crowd turned toward Anna, their faces twisted with anger. You did this? Someone else yelled. Panic erupted as people rushed toward Anna, their voices filled with fury. We will kill you, they shouted, grabbing her. Anna screamed as the crowd closed in, their hands pulling and hitting her. She struggled to protect herself, her cries of pain drowned out by the shouts of the angry mob. Stop, please, Grace shouted, trying to push through the crowd, but her voice was lost in the chaos. Just then, the sound of sirens pierced through the air. The police arrived, their vehicles screeching to a halt. Officers jumped out and rushed toward the scene, blowing whistles and yelling for the crowd to disperse. Step back. Step back. One of the officers shouted, pulling people away from Anna. The mob reluctantly moved back, their anger still simmering. Anna lay on the ground, bruised and trembling. The officers lifted her to her feet and escorted her to the police van. As they placed her inside, she looked out at the scene before her. The lifeless bodies, the crying guests, the devastated families. All of it felt like a nightmare. James stood in the middle of the chaos, his face pale and his eyes wide with shock. Their eyes met for a brief moment, and Anna's tears fell freely. You destroyed me, James, she whispered, her voice too soft for anyone to hear. The van door slammed shut, and the vehicle drove away, leaving the broken wedding behind. But the echoes of Anna's actions and James's betrayal would linger, haunting everyone who had been there that fateful day. Outside the police station, a furious mob had gathered, their angry voices echoing through the air. They were waiting for Anna, the chef they believed had poisoned hundreds of people. Release her to us, they shouted, their faces filled with rage. We want justice for the victims. Anna sat in the police van, her heart pounding as she listened to the angry crowd. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she realized the full extent of what she had done. Families were crying over their loved ones, ambulance sirens wailed as paramedics carried victims to the hospital, and the mob outside grew louder and more aggressive. This is all my fault, Anna whispered, her voice trembling. What have I done? She buried her face in her hands, guilt washing over her like a tidal wave. Grace, standing nearby, tried to comfort her. Anna, it'll be okay. We'll figure this out, Grace said softly, though her own voice wavered with uncertainty. The police struggled to control the mob, finally managing to drive Anna out of the crowd. The journey to the hospital felt like an eternity. When they arrived, the doctors immediately demanded to know the poison Anna had used. What did you put in the food? One of the doctors asked, urgency in his voice. Anna hesitated, her lips trembling. Finally, she whispered the name of the poison. The doctor's face darkened. That's a very strong poison, he said grimly. I doubt if any of the victims will survive. Anna collapsed onto the floor of the police cell, sobbing uncontrollably. I wish I could undo this, she cried. I never meant to hurt anyone. She curled up in a corner, consumed by regret. Back at the wedding venue, James sat alone, staring blankly at the devastation around him. His fiancée was gone. His parents, relatives, and friends were all in critical condition. The weight of it all crushed him. I can't take this, James whispered to himself. Overwhelmed with guilt and despair, he took a vial of poison and drank it. At the hospital, chaos suddenly turned to hope. A nurse burst out of one of the rooms, shouting, Doctor! Doctor! The victims are waking up. The doctor rushed into the room, his eyes widening in disbelief as he saw the victims slowly regaining consciousness. "How is this possible?" he muttered, stunned. News of the recovery reached the police station. Anna overheard the conversation and sat up, shocked. "They're waking up," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "How?" Grace stepped forward, her voice trembling. "Anna, I need to tell you something," she said. "When I went to your bag to get money for the spices, I saw the poison. I suspected what you were planning. I know you're not a bad person. You were just hurt and angry. So, I replaced the poison with a sleeping substance." Anna's eyes widened in disbelief. You did what?" "I couldn't let you do something you'd regret for the rest of your life," Grace continued. "When it's time to give your statement, tell the police you used a sleeping substance to stop the wedding. It will reduce your charges. But if you admit to using poison, the consequences will be severe." Anna hugged Grace tightly, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you," she whispered. "Even if I go to prison, at least I didn't kill anyone." Meanwhile, at the hospital, the victims were waking up, confused but alive. The bride suddenly sat up, gasping. "Where is James?" she asked urgently. "He's at home," the doctor replied. "You need to rest." "No," she said, shaking her head. "I need to see him now." Ignoring the doctor's protests, she rushed out of the hospital. When she arrived home, she found James lying weakly on the couch. His face lit up with a mix of relief and disbelief. "Is it you?" he whispered. Or your ghost?" "It's me," she said, tears streaming down her face. "We're all okay now. Everyone is alive." James's eyes filled with tears. "It's too late," he said weakly. "I thought you were all gone. I couldn't bear it. I took poison." "No!" she screamed, panic gripping her. Just then, James's parents and some of the other victims arrived. The bride told them what had happened, and they quickly lifted James, rushing him to the hospital. But on the way, James gasped his final breath. "No, James," his bride cried, holding him tightly. The ambulance sirens wailed as they raced against time, but it was too late. James was gone.